What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Alaska Outdoor Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Caleb Martin, and this show is brought to you by Explore Alaska. You can check us out on explorealaska.org or on Facebook or on any of your podcast listening devices, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. Today, I'm joined by owner and operator of Red Mountain Gear, Luke Aho. Luke, how's it going, bud?
It's going pretty good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, man, no problem. Sorry, gotta pour my new Barney's beer here. So man, how'd your season go? We're just kind of in the middle of winter here, but starting January's coming up here pretty soon. Waiting on draw tags. But how was 2020 for you?
Yeah, I've seen a whole lot of weather, sheep hunting. It was wind, rain, fog. Did manage to pull a goat out later in the fall, which that was my first goat, so that was really cool. Got out for caribou and moose a few times, and yeah, overall is a fun fall, but a lot of weather.
Oh yeah, man. I know we went up to the Hall Road, and the weather actually for us was pretty good for the most part. But when I ended up heading over to Kodiak in the fall time for brown bear over there, man, it got super cold really fast, and it was actually kind of dry for Kodiak, which was kind of unusual. So, man, Red Mountain Gear, can you tell us what's that all about? Can you tell us a little bit about history, where it came from?
So it started out going on my first sheep hunt, packing my bag, thinking, okay, I'm good to go. Put my pack on the scale, and it's at 71 pounds. It's like, oh boy, that's a little overkill. So I start looking at what can come out of my pack, and the first obvious thing is my tripod. So pull that out. There's 2.5, 3 pounds right there. Well, I got my pack down to 63 pounds, and then that whole sheep hunt, my buddy brought his spotting scope, and so there was two of us, one spotting scope. So we just rested on the bag, get comfortable, get to where you don't have to touch it, look through it, and then try back up. Don't disturb the pack, don't disturb the ground around it, so the other guy can take a look. And then the whole time I'm hiking, have my trekking poles in my hands, thinking I have two tripod legs right here. How do I make this into a tripod? And so I kind of stumbled on with that idea for a little while, trying to figure out how to hold the trekking poles together, and how do I make a tripod out of this? And then it's kind of embarrassingly long how long I was trying to come up with an idea how to wrap around the handles. And then one day the light bulb went off. It's like, you dum-dum, flip the trekking pole upside down. And from there, then it went fast. Kind of the idea to concept working prototype. And, from there we were kind of on to something. And that the ball just seemed to start rolling there.
Yeah, I think everybody has been there. When they throw everything in their pack, the evolution of a sheep hunter, a mountain hunter, goat hunter, whatever have you, right? Hunter in general, but especially when it comes to mountains. I look back at pictures of what I was carrying when I first started, and it was like an Alps Freighter frame pack, had shit hanging all over the place off of it. I looked like a Sherpa coming off the mountain, and now I'm cutting my toothbrush in half and cutting, the ends of my straps off and figuring out like exactly how many calories I need per day. So like the Very Leg tripod, I know me and you started working on that. I don't know. It's been 3-4 years?
Probably at least 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, and the evolution of how that has changed. I mean, for me, shedding that much weight off in my pack is absolutely incredible. I don't know anywhere else I could shed 2 pounds at the moment. And before, you came out with this tripod thing, I didn't know, everybody's going to carbon, but even carbon tripods, you're still looking at probably at least 2 pounds there. I mean, so you're shedding, what, like almost 2 pounds of weight just going from that to the very leg. Tripod and some of the other stuff you got in the works is super handy too, because I know a lot of guys, they like their different styles of heads for, especially if they're photographers or videographers and stuff. Everybody's got that. So you guys even have stuff to fit their style now. So watching the evolution has been awesome, and it's been even better for me carrying less weight in my backpack. I'm not complaining at all. So were you born and raised in Alaska? What's your history with the state here?
So I grew up on a dairy farm in central Minnesota, and the mountains always, I mean, they always had a huge draw for me. When I was about 12, I took a skiing trip out to Montana. And then when I was 19, I had a buddy that moved down to South Carolina, and he told me to move down there. So I didn't have much going on that summer. Never really had a draw to there, but I had the opportunity. So I was like, might as well go. Well, when I was on my way down to South Carolina, one of my buddies that I went to high school with, after high school, he'd call me up about once every 6 months and be like, hey, want to hang out? I didn't hear from him real often, but every once in a while. But anyways, I was driving down to South Carolina. He calls me up. And I was like, oh, I'm actually moving to South Carolina. He's like, oh, really? Find a job for me and I'll come down. So I got a job for him down there. And then once college started, I headed back to Minnesota. And then I talked to him maybe once or twice during the school year. And then it was getting towards the end of the school year, and I was kind of wondering what I should do. And I had even mentioned to my mom that I should just buy a one-way ticket to Alaska. And, of course, she gave me the, what? Why would you do that? What are you going to do when you get up there? I was like, oh, I don't know. And just kind of brushed it off. Well, then it was like a day or two later, that same buddy calls me up. He's like, hey, my uncle has a lawn mowing business in Alaska. Come up. I have a job and a place for you to live. So, of course, I hopped online, bought a ticket, went home, told my mom, hey, I bought a one-way ticket to Alaska. And I told her the situation, and then she felt a little better about it. So then, yeah, I came up here. I spent 2 summers up here while I was finishing up college, and then once I finished college, then I moved up here, and I've been up here since 2011.
Yeah, it's funny how Alaska kind of gets those hooks in you, and then it's just like, pretty hard to leave. I know, there's a few years I thought about, I spent my entire life up here. It's just like, is there something I'm missing somewhere else? I took my car and drove across the United States all over the place with my camera, taking pictures of stuff and backpacking, being a total granola, and, I at the end of it was probably a year or two I did that, and then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I still love the fact that, where else do you have this much public land and this much opportunity to go out and go hunting? It's just doesn't get much better than this.
No, and that I believe it was my first week up here. One guy told me the worst part about coming to Alaska is you may never leave. And there's definitely some truth to that. I mean, from kind of what I see up here is most people are either going to love it or hate it. It's the darkness in the winter can mess with people, but the summer more than makes up for it. And me coming from Minnesota and the South Central here, winters are pretty similar. It seems to start a little earlier in the year, ends a little later in the year. And then, like the darkness, whether I'm in Minnesota or here, I was working dark to dark in the winter. So the darkness hasn't really got me too bad, but.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, especially if you're not into the outdoors and you come up to Alaska and, you get sucked in by the, thrill of adventure and the mountains and all the beauty, but you're not much of an outdoors person. They make for really long winters. I mean, I know 2020, with this whole pandemic stuff going on, I've been going stir crazy just at home here in Anchorage. I mean, it's been absolutely crazy. We've been trying to get out as much as possible, but it seems like all the trails and trailheads and campgrounds and everything is so full this year, even compared to years where we got high tourists. I mean, everybody's just looking for something to do because everything in town is shut down. It's crazy.
Yeah, that definitely seemed to be one unique thing for Alaskan residents this year is when you'd go out and about, it's pretty much only Alaskans, actually taking advantage of this state. It seemed like this year, uh, you get places, like Alaskans will almost pretend that Denali National Park, that a lot of them will just kind of forget about it because there's a ton of tourists. Whereas this year we had the unique opportunity that we were the ones that had the opportunity to see it.
I know I got some dirty looks. We rolled through Denali. My girlfriend Kendra, she worked up there in the park for 2-3 years when she first got to Alaska. And so we go still stop by Healy, and visit her friends and stuff, and go into the park the first 15 miles. I think early in the season they actually had it opened 30 miles or something. So we drove back in there quite a ways. But after moose season, on the way back, we stopped in there to visit some friends and rolled into the park. Had our big old white van, had moose horns hanging off the front of it. We got definitely some dirty looks in the park, but man, there is some monster bull moose in that park. It's crazy.
I've actually never been in there myself because it's been and this year I should have taken advantage this summer. Normally I'm looking to kind of get away from the crowds, and for me, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I don't even hardly go down on the Kenai Peninsula if I can help it, just because that's where everything's crowded. I'd rather go north and try to get away a little bit, and I know between Labor Day and Memorial Day, can take advantage of the Kenai Peninsula with way less crowds.
Oh yeah, growing up on the Kenai myself, man, so many people were like, in the summertime, never see me on the river, and all my friends wanted to come down and go sockeye fishing, and I'm like, I don't know. They're like, man, but you live on the Kenai. I was like, exactly. The summertime is the perfect opportunity for me to go trout fishing. Go up to the mountain lakes, hike out there, go do some fishing, and you'll have 1/10 of the people. Go out to Russian, get some free piercings with the hooks flying and the craziness going on. Ah, man, I could go on for days about the stories of this stuff I've seen on the Russian River, man. It's entertaining. We go down, we do go fish the Russian. We do maybe 2-3 times a year. And every time, we take it, you just got to be lighthearted about the situation. There's going to be tons of people. There's going to be experienced people. There's going to be inexperienced people. There's going to be bears. Yep. Always. So knowing that going in, be prepared for the bears. You don't have to get too crazy. Most of them are full of fish anyways. But you mostly have to worry just about the inexperienced people, right? And just understand that that's going to happen, and just kind of go in there and laugh at the situation. There's going to be tons of people, so it's going to be hard to find a spot. So you got to start early, squeeze your way in, fight everybody to keep your spot the whole time. But it can be really fun. I know they had that limit up to 9 reds what was that, last year? And oh man, it was like you couldn't drop that fly in the water without getting a red on. It was crazy. So it can be fun if you just want to go out there and get dirty, get muddy, and but expect to have a ton of people. It's definitely not like the traditional sense of the peaceful setting of going out and catching fish in Alaska with the beautiful scenery and the serenity in their environment. No, that's not what the Russians about at all. It's about going out and getting fish, and that's fun. You get a couple of your buddies, go have some beers on the river. It could be a good time. But yeah, that's about as much as the tourism I try to handle in the summertime. There's other times where I kind of shy away from it and do my best to get to the farthest, remotest part of the world to get away from it. So
yeah, the Russian, they call it combat fishing for a reason. I mean, wear your sunglasses or safety glasses, because chances are you're going to have someone fishing within 6-10 feet of you, and it's funny. You talk about dodging hooks. My second year up here, my brother came up here too, and we were fishing in a spot, and I just had a real lightweight, a trout fly rod I was trying to catch silvers on. I'd been fishing all summer, so I figured I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. So I got a real light fly rod, and then so I got a fish on, and with that you really had to set the hook. I set the hook, it yanked out. The hook came flying back, and then I tried to throw it forward, and it just smoked my ear, stuck into my ear. So my brother was taking a break sitting in the Jeep, so I just bit my line off, put my hood up, kind of sulk back to the Jeep, jump in the Jeep, waiting for him to jump out. Well, he wasn't jumping out, and this hook is in my ear. So I pull my hood down, and the first thing he does is dives for his camera, just dying laughing. So that one, the barb went in, and I needed to poke it all the way through and then clip the barb. But oh yeah, he thought it was hilarious.
Oh man, we've been geeking out on that show Alone lately, and just last night we watched one where a lady on that show, she had a fly hook though, one of those little smaller rounded ones,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And she sunk that thing in her hand, but it locked into the tendon on her thumb. So, you know, she's like, she couldn't puncture it all the way through. She did, you know, was out there with no pliers. I don't know if you've seen that show. But,
Yeah, I've seen a little
Yeah.
bit of it, not much, but enough to know what it is.
yeah, and they, you know, she was just pushing on that thing, trying to get it out of her out of her thumb. I felt so bad, but at the same time, you know, I couldn't think of how many times I've had the hook stick in from myself or somebody around me, you know, stuck in me going, oh, know that feeling. But usually it's, I've never had a problem where I couldn't get the hook out, you know, at least puncture it all the way through or pull it out all the way. But, you know, having a nice pair of pliers helps quite a bit too.
Yeah, that one in my ear, I was surprised how hard I actually had to push to get it to come, because it sunk in with the barb, so coming back out the same way wasn't an option without, you know, completely tearing my ear up. And I took my wallet and bit down on that and had to push pretty hard, and it didn't hurt at all other than when I was pushing it through. But then once I pushed it through, I was able to slide it back and forth and then clipped it off. But there's another time I was fishing too, and my buddy's wife was fishing as well, and another guy. That was pretty late at night, so we had the whole riverbank. Another guy comes and plants about 10 feet from her, and she got a fish. She set the hook, and the fish, it popped out of the fish's mouth. The sinker flew back, hit the guy's right in the forehead, and somehow it busted her line off. Well, then the guy felt bad, and he tied a new lure on her line. So she smacked him in the forehead for getting too close, and then he tied a new hook on.
Yeah, you could tell a lot about what people's gear are by just sitting down there on the river some years and just listening, because it's so funny, especially if they hook them in the tail. You can tell a lot about how people are fishing for reds based on how the fish are reacting, and just watching them for half hour to an hour and what kind of hookups they're getting. If they're hooking them in the tail a lot. But it's so funny every time that you see that happen, that they set that hook and just reef on that thing, and you just hear that drag start screaming, the end of that pole bouncing, and it's coming. As soon as they either grab that reel to try to stop that fish, or it hits the end of the line, and sure enough, pow! Every time it's like a gunshot. And then down there on the, I'm amazed all those bears are coming around, because pow, 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 all down the riverbank. That or when that line pops out. Growing up, we were always told, if you got a fish on, yell fish on, especially if you're on a halibut boat or down there fishing around a lot of people. But I think a lot of people, especially tourists, get super excited when that fish is on, and then they're just like, trying to fight that fish, and that fish is running back and forth between people's lines. And oh man, I know how many times last summer I was yelling fish on, and then as soon as it spits the hook, fish off, but sometimes you can get some of those people that get pretty upset with you when they're not doing as good as you're doing. You're yelling fish on down the bank every 5 minutes and get some dirty looks.
Yeah, that reminds me of a different time I was fishing too. A guy caught a guy. He was probably, I don't know, 16. He caught a fish, pulled it to the bank. When he pulled it to the bank, two more guys jumped right in his spot, and there was maybe 6 feet between them. So he takes his fish off, and then goes right in between them. He's like, I can do this all day. So there's like 2 feet in between each of them. He throws his line in the water and gets another one.
Oh man, I remember growing up, having that same thing happening, and I got a whole wad of younger cousins, and usually when they're fishing with me, the easiest way to ever get a spot on the bank is go down there and try to teach him how to flip. because he's 14. He's got a big old hook on there. He's just whipping that thing around. The crowd just parts. Just everyone's like, "Whoa!"
Yep.
Always a great time. So, jumping back to the hunting world out of the fishing spot, you went and got a goat this year. You said that was a tag you drew, or you went up and got a registration harvest ticket.
That was just a registration. Yeah. So and that was last weekend a sheep hunt. Well, earlier in the fall, I had found out about this registration hunt. Or no, excuse me, that was last weekend of sheep hunting. I found out about this. I was planning on going on like just a short 4-day sheep hunt, just Hail Mary, see what happens. Well, then I found out about this goat hunt registration. That was a shiny new thing that I couldn't get my head off of.
Yeah.
So we go in there and figure out it's just solid brush. I mean, it took us 8 hours to climb 1,500 feet. And most of the time you can kind of pick your way through, find an open spot here and there, go up a drainage and there won't be quite as much brush, but this was just absolutely choked. So we got in there, we found goats, but they weren't in accessible places. So we came out of there, and I mean that was probably the most mentally exhausting hunt that I've ever been on. I mean, I wasn't prepared for it, but it just bothered me that it whooped me so bad. So about 3 weeks later, it's like, you know what? I found goats in there. I'm gonna go find them again. So about 3 weeks later, we went in there and went up, and we were able to make it happen. Me and a buddy both got a goat, so that was really cool. We went in Friday morning, got up there Friday night, and then by the time we got up there, this was in mid-October, so days are getting short and it's getting cold. I mean, during the days or at night it was into the teens, and there was probably we were camping in probably 4 to 6 inches of snow. So you wake up in the morning, your boots are frozen, and then it takes a couple hours for them to thaw out, and so but even despite that, this time knowing what to expect, it didn't whoop me near as bad as the first time. I just knew it was going to take us a day to get in, and then we're hunting from there. So it worked out pretty good, and we were able to get on them and get 2 down. So that was really cool.
Heck yeah, I know. I think this goat, I think it was that goat sitting there on the table that the first time I went on over at the end of the Kenai Peninsula, man, this is the same thing. I learned a lot about salmon berries that hunt, and anybody who's listening to this and knows about salmon berries is probably laughing and knowing where this story's going. But we got down there, and oh man, there's so many deadfalls in that area. A lot of the trees, those big spruce, their roots aren't very deep, so they get a lot of rain, exposes the roots, and then they get these big windstorms, and all these trees fall all over the place on those steep hillsides. So you go in there and you're climbing like a jungle gym for a few hours, and climb up over the shit, and then you get up there up top, and you can kind of see where it's opening up and where to get up top, and you just looking at this big meadow of brownish grass and bushes, and you're just like, oh, no problem, we'll just go right through that. It'll be we'll breeze through that, we're right on top. Sure enough, and we get a couple hundred yards into it, into this thick stuff of salmon berries, and oh my goodness, it's so thick you'd have to push your hands in front of you and part it, take a step, and everything's getting caught, and you're just cussing and getting smacked in the face, and well, of course we're wearing short sleeves, so we got cuts all over both of our arms, and oh man, I remember at one point we made a decision to go up against these cliffs, thinking up in the rocky part right there that no plants would grow. There might be a little bit of a break there, and not a chance. And then we're just in the super steep stuff, plus in this thick ass patch of salmon berries, and Man, I remember thinking like, how does anything even grow on in this terrain, let alone this thick? And so eventually we got out of it and busted our way through. But yeah, that was a big learning lesson on salmon berries and goat hunting. Goat hunting, it's very rare that you're not beating brush in one way or the other.
Yeah, it's an eye-opening experience, and especially like for myself coming from the sheep hunting world, you think sheep hunting is where you hear about the physical aspect of it, and goat hunting is it's way underrated. I mean it's tough.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah. I think the worst weather I've ever been on, and the worst weather hunts I've ever been are always go hunts. They're always on that steep, nasty, wet coastline, like Kodiak, Kenai. Those areas where you're just getting really bad winds. The weather's kind of just doing whatever it wants to do. Um, I know one hunt on the Kenai, we were down there. Woke up in the middle of the night, 65 knot winds. Just absolutely getting hammered. We were there. It only ended up being about a 4-day hunt, and by day 3, everything we had was soaked. I mean, we were in Hilleberg, Nalo, and it was 100% humidity, raining the entire time. Everything was socked in, and it was raining inside the tent as bad as it was raining outside the tent. And like the morning of day 4, we told ourselves like we have to kill something today. Like we need to get this done and get out of here because we are just getting our butts whooped. Not only physically, by the steep terrain, but the weather. I mean, we literally woke up one night, me and my hunting partner at the time, 2 feet apart from each other, could not even hear each other's talk, and the wind or the tent's just smacking me in the face, and I'm just praying that the tent's gonna stay in one piece for the evening, because totally exposed, totally. But those things just thrive in that area, and it's absolutely crazy. The last couple of days we were up in the country watching those goats wander around. It's like 10 degrees outside, incredibly slick because it got warmed up this last week. It's been super icy, and there they are, like big, mountain gorillas still all over these crazy cliffs. I think that's a big attraction to them to me is just how incredibly tough they are. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I know like off the end of the point there, out of Seward, you come out of there into the North Gulf Coast, and you have a rock face, just completely rock face. That's probably, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 feet high by 500 yards long, and there'll be goats right in the middle of it. It's like, how do you even get there? How do you stay up there, much less get there?
Yeah, what
it's
are you
incredible.
doing there? Very impressive. So, was that your first goat hunt this year?
Yeah, it was. It kind of, goat was always kind of I should try it. One day it'd be fun to really try it. And then, the way I found out about this goat hunt is I have a different buddy that he had pulled a goat out of there a couple years ago. And then he's like, you want to go goat hunting? I was like, sure, might as well. Let's go give it a run. And then it was a little bit different spot that I was going to go with him. And then he ended up not being able to go. So me and a different buddy went into a different spot on the same tag. Mm-hmm. And just kind of did a quick little research, call up Fish and Game and, tell them their plan. And that I think that's one thing worth noting is Fish and Game can be an excellent resource, but if you're going to call them, have your stuff in order. Call them and say, this is where I'm planning to hunt. This is how I plan to access. What are the goat densities in this area? Is there things that I should be considering here that I may not be? If you just call them up and say, hey, I want to hunt goats, where should I goat hunt? Yeah, you're going to get in the mountains. It's the more specific you can be with your questions, the more specific they're going to be with their answers.
Yeah, that's one thing I learned early on too, about research in general. Man, the more I've researched the last 5 or 6 years, the greater my success has been, and also the ease on my hunts has been, right?
Yep.
Because more than likely in this day and age, somebody has probably been in there and done it.
Yep.
And if anybody knows anything about those animals, it's going to be the area biologist most of the time.
Yep.
Most of the time, because I know somebody's already disagreeing with that statement I just said. But most of the time, the biologists are going to be in the know on what's going on with those animals, right?
Yep.
So it's a huge, valuable resource, but at the same time, and sometimes they've even hunted the tag themselves. When I talked to the biologist up in Dead Horse, or not Dead Horse, but the Brooks Range about a moose hunt I went on. His father had drew it. He had hunted that tag before, and he gave some really valuable insight on it without pointing me, hey, go hunt in this one spot,
Yeah.
And I, half the time, a biologist could probably tell me to go hunt this one spot. I'll probably go hunt somewhere different anyways, because that's just the way I am. I just know what I'm looking for and how I want to hunt it in different areas. There's so many different ways to hunt areas and tags, especially that one like that moose hunt. There's like 80 miles of road. It's just like, do I set in glass here? Do I call in glass there? Blah blah blah. There's a million different ways, but those biologists can be super, super valuable. But yeah, you definitely want to be specific. And I mean, that goes in general anywhere anymore. You see it on the hunting club as much as I do every day.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to kill a moose. Where should I go? And I can't really be, hate on those guys too much because, they're green. They're new. They're not trying to be offensive or, piss anybody off, even though there's probably 100 smartasses on the hunting club page that are just waiting for, to jump on them. But, being specific on the hunting club page, wherever you are, right? You got to start by first doing your research, making your own plan, and then talking to people and researching based on that plan. And I know a lot of people are going, well, if I have no idea about anything to start with about moose, where's my plan? Well, start by learning about the animal.
Yep.
Because once you start learning about the animal, and you understand what that animal needs, what it's, why it will, react to certain, like goats, why goats are in a certain area, why they're not in other areas, right? Once you know where they are and where to find and how the animal feeds and what it reacts to, you'll kind of narrow it down. And the more you learn about that animal, then pretty soon that'll help you formulate the plan. And I think, there's just not enough due diligence there, especially with social media these days when people can just, hey, where are the caribou hanging out on the Denali Highway? Oh man, I've been seeing that all over the place lately.
Well, and then another thing too, I think that's worth noting is get yourself a gazetteer and Google Earth. They can, once you get out, you'll start to get to see the terrain. Look at it. If you're going to go to a spot, look at that spot in Google Earth. Kind of study it. Look, I think I can go here. I think I can go here. Here looks too steep. And then when you go out, actually make a mental note of it. Because right away looking at Google Earth, it's like, oh yeah, I can go up and over that pass, no problem. And then you didn't notice on Google Earth there's a 20 or 30 foot cliff there, and no, you actually can't go up and over there.
Oh yeah.
And then once you do that, I know for myself, you start to be able to see on Google Earth what you can actually do and what you can't do, and then topo maps too on, like the Gazetteer. If the closer those lines are, the steeper it is.
Oh yeah, the Gazetteer is like one of my Bibles. I have it up on the shelf. I think there's so many pages with dog-eared edges on it and marks all over the place and pin all over the place.
Yep,
I don't know how many times the last couple of years I've been kind of getting away from it and going to more digital on a lot of things, but that thing always has a place in the van or at the house, and it's the first book every time my buddy's over and we're talking about, all right, what tags are we going to put in for, where do you want to go hunt? The first book that comes out is always the last, that Gazetteer, and we're opening it, oh, let's go here, what about here, it's a great book to have. It's a staple for sure.
Yeah, I know I've had it open many a times, and you can learn a lot just from that, and then figuring out how to pair it with Google Earth or something like Google Earth can be invaluable. It's really nice.
Okay, speaking about valuable tools, we were talking about that new pack. Give us a lowdown on that new pack you were talking about.
Yeah, so this fall I got myself a Ovis Mountain pack. He's out of Fairbanks, and I have been running a Barney's frame, and just I don't know, looking, sheep hunter, always looking to cut weight, and I had really been thinking seriously about getting a Stone Glacier, and then I seen something about that Ovis Mountain one. It's like looked into it. It's like this looks like a really cool pack. So I, sent him a message, and then I ended up getting one this fall, and I've been more than happy with it. That goat hunt, I had probably about 110 pounds on my back, and it performed really well. I've been pleasantly surprised with it. This year sheep hunting, we had 9 days. It rained every day, and I think I only put my rain fly on it 2 or 3 days, and my stuff was staying dry and in it. It wasn't just the downpour rain, the soaking Kodiak rain, but it definitely gets packs wet,
Mm-hmm.
and my stuff stayed surprisingly dry inside of it. So I've been pretty pleasantly surprised with that pack. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was pretty surprised. Talking with you and checking it out here in person. It's very comparable to Stone Glacier bags, and maybe even a little better in some ways. Well, time will tell. I'll have to do my diligence myself. I know I'm a little bit of a gear junkie, but I'm all about new and exciting gear, new backpacks, especially backpacks. But um, it looks pretty badass. Have you put any moose in it yet, or just sheep?
I haven't. It's just that goat, and yeah, I got it. Is about 2 weeks before sheep hunting. So I took it on a couple weekend hunts, weighted it down, and ran it, make sure it's gonna work for me for my sheep hunt, and took the gamble, and it worked. I really enjoyed it. That sheep hunt, it carries real nice, and then that goat hunt, putting the weight in there, the bag separates away. It has the pack shelf where you can separate the bag, put the meat in between. You're right up against the frame, and then suck your bag tight. Stone Glacier. There's a few others I know have the same thing going on, and yeah, I was able to fit my whole goat hide and all 4 quarters in there, suck everything tight, and I didn't have to really adjust it at all on my way down the mountain, and it did quite well.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about it immediately is that load shelf is quite a bit bigger. Not necessarily, wider or bigger, but kind of longer and just has more square area capturing the meat in there than the Stone Glacier. Stone Glacier's got a pretty small one. That where just like the bottom of a quarter would rest on it. It's maybe 10 by 10. But that being said, I did haul out my entire moose this year with that thing. And a lot of guys I know we're begging on Stone Glacier that Stone Glacier is for sheep hunting, and like basically those internal packs are for sheep hunting only and not for moose. But I held 800 pounds in 2.5 days like an idiot over a mile. That being said, the 6900 was a little tight. I'll probably jump up to the 7000. But with the technology these days, those carbon fiber frames can hold up pretty well. I know there's been some, my Kuiu, I had a Kuiu for a while. I would never, buy another one of those again. But Kafaru bag and, I haven't dealt much with Mystery Ranch. I haven't touched the EXO yet. Hopefully get some hands on them here in the near future and be able to compare. But Stone Glacier, where my experience is, I got several Stone Glacier bags, and I've hauled out everything in Alaska besides a bison in them so far. So I'm like, I have no reason to switch when the bag's that light,
Yep.
and they can handle that much. Nothing against Barney's bags, because Barney's, I've hauled out some shit, and with some Barney's bags, I mean, they can handle some weight. If I was a dedicated moose guide, I would probably rock a Barney's no problem. That being said, though, the Barneys, some of them, I think the lightest one is maybe 7 pounds. And, in the constant journey of trying to shed pounds, to me, I'm just like, I can shed, 2 or more pounds just by switching over Stone Glacier. So to me, the choice was easy as long as it fulfilled the same things.
Yep.
That being said, I'm not a avid moose hunter. I'll moose hunt after I shot other things during the season because I'm always looking to put more meat in the freezer. But that being said, my passion is goats, bears, high country stuff, sheep.
Yep.
Whereas a moose hunter, I can definitely see where they might be, shy away from a lot of the internal frames. I mean, most of the big names in the industry now are almost all internal frames.
Yep.
You don't see a lot of people carrying external frames. Besides, I think Seek Outside has some external frames and some hybrids, and then Barney's. That's at least for Alaskans, anyways.
Yeah. Well, and I know one thing with the Barney's frame is it's simple. It's and I'm not going to get rid of mine because every year it seems like I go on a moose hunt or two, and if I'm going moose hunting, I'll grab my Barney's because it's bulletproof. I mean it's nice, and that was one eye-opening thing for me getting this new pack this year. Get it in the mail, open it up, and it's like, what does this do? What does this, just getting everything adjusted. The internal frames, it takes a little bit to just kind of figure it out. And whereas Barney's, it's a couple straps doesn't feel right, adjust it a little bit or bring it in and Kevin will help you get it adjusted. But with the internal frames, there's so much that you can adjust, which does make it awesome because when you get it adjusted, it's so comfortable. It moves with you. It doesn't
absolutely perfect. Yeah, those carbon fiber frames, that little bit of a material in there with those aluminum stays or carbon stays, depending on how they make those frames up. The whole frame can twist with your body, but not only that, you can adjust, the shoulder height all the way down. You're kind of limited to whatever the frames allows you to do on an external frame, but internal frame, you can adjust them fit perfect. But that's also kind of the lack of rigidity is also what makes the biggest difference between the two frame styles because those Barney frames, the reason they can carry those heavy loads is because they're so rigid. So that's kind of the cost, right? So yeah, there's definitely some great options out there.
Yeah, and it seems like every few days someone will ask on one of those Facebook pages, I'm thinking about this frame, what does everyone think? And then everyone will throw out the frame they have. I mean, this it's this or nothing, and it just kind of cracks me up every time. It's like, well, you have your Kifaru Stone Glacier, those are pretty well the top of the line of your internal frame. And I mean, I guess personally, my experience, I don't have experience with Stone Glacier or Kifaru, but this Ovis Mountain one I've been very happy with. And then I know there's a few others, Exo. I guess Mystery Ranch is kind of right up there with the top of them too, but like Exo is another one that you see. And then from there, I guess QU has gotten better with their packs. I know my sheep hunting partner, he got a QU this year, and he was happy with them. But it seems like they have had their horror stories in the beginning, but it does seem like they have gotten better.
Yeah, it seems like they definitely noted the people that were when their frames are breaking. That's exactly what was happening. I know those carbon frames were cracking on people. And I never had one crack myself, but I've seen cracked frames from Kuiu, but I got rid of mine just because it wasn't comfortable for me. And a lot of gear, we've kind of specialized gear so much now that you can get, different brands that fit you better than other brands. So somebody might rock a Kifaru or different other pack, and their body is going to be, my body's not going to be the same as your body. So what I like and what fits me good is not going to be the same as you all the time. Yeah, there's a core group of half a dozen or so big companies that are really going to, get you everything you need from that group. I mix and match. I mean, I'm a mutt when it comes to gear. I do not get brand loyalty at all because, I used to rock Sitka gear. Now I don't rock Sitka gear at all. After they came out with the whole Anwar thing, I was like, fuck you guys. Yeah. But, that being said, I used to rock, their cold front jacket, Mountain Hardwear, gloves, Enlightened equipment, puffies. I'm all over the place. You look at my gear bag, it's a little bit of everything. Because I think, a lot of companies make some really good stuff. And so, even some great companies also make some really crappy stuff. Yep. You know what I mean? So I don't think there's any company out there that makes 100% solid stuff. And that might just be because me personally, it just doesn't fit me well, or it doesn't fit my style well. So it's not going to, be as well for me. As men, I think we're kind of all, have this mindset. I don't know about you. I've never been in a dressing room in a store ever. You know what I mean? So it's just like, most of the time you were like, oh, what size should we get? All right, we'll try this, And then, that being said, you get something without trying it on and putting it through the paces or doing proper research, it doesn't fit right. Immediately it's like, oh, that sucks. Yep. So you see it all over the hunting pages. And like you said, somebody invests in a piece of gear and they do like it, and that's the only piece of gear they tried, it's absolutely awesome. And then if they have heard some bad rumors about other companies without fully confirming, a lot of times this is the best, everything else sucks. And that really sucks because of this reason. And it's just like, well, have you had one of those packs personally? No. I mean, I started hunting with an Alps Freighter frame, which we were pretty lucky. Growing up at our age, you look at some of the older folks in the hunting industry, what they had is, nowhere incomparable to what we have on the market today. And these guys are complaining about, Alps Freighter frames and stuff, and, Stone Glacier and Exo, which is 100 times better than what they used to have when they were rocking, old school Kelties and, there wasn't a lot of these hunting specific brands that there are in the market now. And yep. I'm like, man, I've packed out probably, at least a dozen caribou on those Alps Freighter frames. So when I see an entry level person that says, hey, I'm getting into hunting, what's a good place to start? And these guys are going, oh, get a Kifaru. I have a hard time believing that an average guy just getting into hunting doesn't know if he's going to fully invest himself in this yet. Is going to go drop $600 or $700.
Yep.
I'll let him know, hey, this is what I use, but this is also top of the line, and it took me a couple of years to save up, and switch out gear, blah blah blah, and but there's some good, economical options out there that aren't, like Slumberjack, right? Slumberjack's been around for a while. They make a good external frame. If you don't have the money to go spend $700 on a high dollar frame, then there's some good options out there that people are like, but reading on social media, complete crap. You listen to everybody, complete crap. It's just like, I hauled out a lot of animals on that old beat up Alps frame. I just got rid of it a couple weeks back for like $40. I gave it to a guy because it was just my truck pack. During moose season, I just always leave it in the pickup, in case I shot a moose on the side of the road, to throw it in there. And that's exactly what the guy that bought it for wanted it for too. He's like, it's something to leave in the truck in case I see something. But you don't necessarily have to have a $700 pack to get into hunting. Everybody, top of the line stuff is really nice, and there's stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. But I mean, my first goat hunt, that goat right there looked like a Sherpa packing down the mountain with an Alps frame and probably 150 pounds of gear on that stupid frame. God, it was painful.
And there's been a lot of animals shot, people wearing just a pack board, their blue jeans, and back in the day they'd throw their little Visqueen out there, a little bit of hardtack and some jerky, and they'd go out in the mountains and get animals. You want to go back far enough, back into the day of the market hunters, and that's how they did it. And that's one of the unfortunate parts, I feel like, in the hunting industry, is like you see one of those posts on Facebook, and it's like almost guaranteed within 5 comments someone's gonna go, you got to get Sitka gear or QU or this stuff, and it's like, okay, most 18-year-old kids, they don't have that money to drop on it. And then I know like optics is another big one where people are like, buy once, cry once. Where, yes, there is. You get into the Swarovski or Leica or Zeiss, and they're awesome. I mean, you're not going to be able to beat them, but you get somebody who they might do like 1 week hunt a year. Is it truly worth them dropping, the $3,000 plus on a spotting scope when you can get a Vortex and it will do the job? I mean, it's plain and simple. It does. Those do work. Yes, there are better out there, but for somebody looking to get into it, it gives the illusion that you've got to buy the best stuff that money can buy. Otherwise, you can't do it, which is absolutely completely false.
Yeah, gear definitely has an effect on your comfort on the hunt, but I think there's other factors that surround hunting that are far more important. Far, far more important. There's some valuable lessons I've learned throughout, my time hunting that I kind of live by now. Sheep hunting, goat hunting. Don't climb unless there's something worth climbing for. I know my first few hunts, maybe my first half a dozen hunts when it comes to mountain curves. I don't know how many times I've climbed and then climbed and then climbed thinking I was going to run some. Now I'm like, I stay down low, glass as much as possible, don't see anything in this valley, move into the next valley. That varies person to person. It's going to vary by your terrain. But, if you keep looking and keep pushing and keep covering mountains, if there's a legal animal in there, you're going to find it. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a Sitka jacket or wearing a Helly Hansen jacket or something you bought at Walmart. If you get your ass out there and go look and spend your time with boots on the ground, that's the only way you're going to know if the animal's there.
Yep.
A Facebook group, social media, Instagram, none of that's going to tell you if the animal's there, and it's not going to help you shoot it either.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is the mental game. I mean, if you can go in with the right mindset and hunt long enough, if you're in spots that hold animals, you'll turn up animals, and it's just the right mindset to keep on going. And then I feel like that's another misconception too, is sheep hunting, for instance, that you have to be some Cameron Hanes, just in incredible shape, where as long as you're in okay shape for sheep hunting, just go at the speed you can go. If you get tired, stop and take a 5-minute break, look around, glass for sheep. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just go at a speed that you can sustain yourself, and you're not just going to completely burn yourself out.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of our hunts, especially guided hunts, we kind of put an agenda in place. When we first start, kind of a blank slate. Like, okay, we're gonna sit here for a couple days, then we'll go out. Check out this area that we want to check out where we've known there's been animals in the past. But even if I didn't know, going on a mountain hunt, there's kind of some areas I have picked out where I want to go check out. But I'm not going to go try to do, burn myself out by doing, 90 miles in the first 3 days of the hunt, right? If I have a big day one day, okay, the next day I might find a closer spot to glass from and spend more time glassing, because you never know where the animal is going to be.
Yep.
I tell my clients all the time, anytime, any place. The animal can be anywhere, anytime, any place. And that has been proved right so many times. I've seen sheep, down at the valley bottoms, rams crossing across the valley bottoms thousands of feet below from where we thought they would be. And we've seen bears pop out of the middle of nowhere that were like, hey, whoa. All of a sudden, the animal that we've been looking for this whole time staring at the mountainside, all of a sudden he's walking by the tents down there, and we're looking at him, wishing we were way back at camp, what I mean? And so you always got to be diligent in the fact and be ready where it's going to be. I think a lot of people get complacent. I know I've personally got complacent, and I've seen a lot of my clients and people that I hunt with get complacent, and animals pop up at times where they weren't ready and they weren't diligent, and all of a sudden, we just missed an opportunity because of it. So it's like, you always got to be alert, that mental game. not only on the hunt but also prior to the hunt. Yeah, you can cover all the miles once you're out there and look in all the drainages and cover, put tons of boot miles on. But if you didn't do your due diligence before the hunt and research and properly look in the area and call the biologist and do all those things to make sure you're in an area that even holds the animal or holds a good population of those animals prior to time, you could be putting on a lot of boot miles and turn up nothing still.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And I know for myself, that was one lesson that I definitely learned the hard way is coming up here from a flatlander. You look at a mountain, you're like, oh, that's just half mile away. Get there, no problem. 15 minutes. 3 hours later, you're still working across that hillside, beating alderbrush and
lesson 134 of hunting.
Yep,
it's always farther than it looks, especially on Kodiak. Oh man.
Yeah, and it's just okay. So when you're out sheep hunting, their time doesn't really matter. If it takes you 8 hours, even a full day to get there, so be it. Take that full day and enjoy the process rather than just, completely beat yourself up in the first 3 days of a 10-day sheep hunt, and then you need to rest for a day. Whereas if you slow down a little bit, take your breaks, then you're able to hunt the whole way through. I mean, if you want to get somewhere, you'll get there. What's the hurry?
Oh yeah, I had a client a couple of years ago. Not very fast. He wasn't very athletic, and the master guide I work with told me, he goes, he's got one pace, and that's his pace. He goes, he doesn't go any faster, he doesn't go any slower, but that's his pace. But it actually kind of helped me because I know on my personal hunts and my personal hiking, I know with a 50-pound pack and kind of uneven, crappy terrain, I have about a 2.5 mile an hour speed. That's can kind of let me know on how I can gauge on how long it's going to take me to go places or what have you, right? I can kind of estimate time off that way. And it helped me estimate time with this guy too. After hiking for a little while, a day or two, I could kind of figure out, okay, what kind of speed, and I could plan accordingly. I can say, okay, finding a sheep or spotting a sheep where he is or where he's not, I could plan on, do we need to spike out? Do I not need to spike out? What time of the day I need to start? Because optimally, especially with sheep hunting, right, they're going to bed up in the afternoon. Yep. Come down, feed in the morning, sleep all day, come down in the afternoon, and feed. And typically, sometimes they'll feed where they fed in the morning, right? So even though we might not get there in time to get them in the morning, we can either, if we get there with enough time, maybe we can harvest them in their beds, or look for them and wait for them to come down and feed in the area they're feeding in the morning and harvest them then, right?
Yep.
But it kind of helps me gauge time that way.
Yeah. Well, and then sheep hunting too, especially if you go earlier in the season in August, it's you can hunt either the morning or the night. Mm-hmm. And very few people can get by on 3 hours of sleep and hit both of them, especially on a 10-day hunt. That sleep is critical to refuel your body. So and I know, like, for a first-time sheep hunter, it may be tough to, you're just revved, ready to go.
Oh, yeah,
and then by day 3 or 4, you're feeling sleep deprived. And if you just pick to hunt either the morning or the evening, then you'll feel a whole lot better. Most people will anyways.
Oh, yeah, and one thing I learned early on with sheep hunting, and I still carry it, the Fish and Game makes a great identification book, that you can carry with you. And, there's no reason, once you get on an animal, no matter what the animal is, 90% of the time, you're going to have multiple opportunities. A lot of people first see the animals come in, gets up, takes off running. They're kind of like, this is my shot, and that's where a lot of animals get wounded, or you might end up taking a sublegal animal, right? Yep. Especially sheep hunting. The lesson I've learned the whole time with sheep hunting on my very first sheep hunt was where to judge it from and how to judge them from, because of the same thing. I was super excited on my first sheep hunt. Here's my sheep. I'm 180 yards from him, looking at him, for a couple hours. I looked at him. I was kind of solo on a hillside, just me and him. And I've been on like 2 or 3 sheep hunts already. Put on tons of miles because I'm, like to beat myself up more than most. So, in a couple hunts, I'd gone 20 miles in walking from the haul road, walking in one way. Got into some stupid country by myself, and so here I am finally. All this work. Here's my sheep. And now looking back, I would never judge a sheep from the angle that I ended up taking that ram at. And the ram ended up being legal, but the lesson I learned from that is, now I judge based on the stick test 99% of the time. There's always those one-offs where you have a nice big ram that might never turn full curl, and he just might be super heavy and have tons of rings or broomed off, But, yeah, like, if I have to, give one piece of advice to anybody, especially new sheep hunters going out sheep hunting, is take your time. Not only just with sheep, but with any animals, especially with moose. If it's a 2 brow tine moose that's, 49 3/4 inches, because I don't know how many 2 brow tine moose there are out there, but there seems to be a lot more these days that are right around the 48 to 52 inch mark that will really throw you for a loop.
Yep.
In my younger years, I would never even dream of shooting an animal based on 50 inches, because that's a skill that's learned over time and based on experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Starting out hunting, it's so much easier to know the guarantees, to rely on the guaranteed parts of the hunt. It's a spike. You don't have to worry about shooting a spike moose because it's a spike. It's a fork. You don't have to worry about it if it's a clean fork, right? And if there's any questionable doubt in your mind, well, if it's not a spike, it's not a fork. If it's not 3 brow tines, if it's not broomed off, if it's not way past full curl or way past it on the stick test, then you're like, well, might shy away from it. But, and then once you gain that experience, be able to look back and be like, oh, yeah, I should have taken that ram, and that might affect some people's success, but it'll keep them on the right side of the law a lot more of the time.
Yep, and like you mentioned, that book that Fish and Game came out with a couple years ago, that is an excellent book. They made it, pocket size, so it can easily go in your pack, and be able to compare a ram that you're physically looking at with that book right in front of you. Okay, this is a scenario that it looks like. What does the book say it is versus what am I seeing? And then I think, too, where a lot of people get hung up is they'll get, day 6, day 7 on a sheep hunt. And if you have to try convince yourself that a sheep is legal, it's not worth shooting. You get tired. You feel like you've worked really hard. There must be a legal sheep by now. But, trust your gut. Your gut will tell you a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, a lot of that's why I use that stick test so often. A lot of guys, the full curl thing, there's a lot of things about angles and, seeing them. The thing about full curl is you got to see them from the right view,
yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And the thing about the stick test is when you're viewing from the side for the full curl, right, you got to be at about the same height as they are, and see them give you that side view so you can see that circular pattern. But the thing about the stick test is at some point, no matter if you're 3 miles away or 1 mile away or 700 yards, 200 yards, at some point they're going to look in your direction, more than likely.
Yep.
And that stick test to me is like, it's like almost as guaranteed as that broom or that 3 brow tines or that spike, right?
Yep.
Because at some point they're going to look in your direction. And as soon as they look in your direction, all you got to see is that tip past the base or not.
Yep.
And then they look in your direction, that tip passes the base, that's 100% guaranteed, no problem, don't have to worry about it. That being said, for conservation purposes, always better harvest, an older and mature ram, and that's kind of more my thing these days. But again, that kind of comes with experience. I used to get so hung up on that, that when we were teaching younger hunters, a lot of people were like, oh, this is his first buck. And it kind of was like a justification for shooting maybe a smaller animal. Um, and I used to get kind of hung up on that thinking like, why did we teach people that it was okay to shoot smaller animals, at that point because of that, and that comes with a lot of other factors. But now I'm like, that's kind of the better conservation aspect of it, because if we're kind of telling them to hold out and be more aware of judging and trying to I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there, but the more we add to it and the more we complicate it, right, the more likely they are to make a mistake. And then maybe they might shoot a sublegal animal, and that's going to be a lot worse for them than if they shot a younger legal animal. Right? And, I have my own internal conflicts on whether we should be doing that or not. And that, again, comes with experience, because I know a lot of people that, it seems like the more you hunt and the more you get into it and the more you study the animals, the more you kind of want to try to take larger animals. And some people might say that's kind of trophy hunting. I kind of think that's part of better conservation, but it depends on why you hunt, right?
Yep.
Are you a meat hunter, or I'm first off always a meat hunter.
Yep.
But if I can shoot a 60-inch bull versus a spike, I'm going to take that 60 every time. There's more meat on it. That might make me a trophy hunter, but you know what? I'm going to do my due diligence and look around before taking the first legal animal. That being said, when I first started my hunting career, and hunting in general, I would shoot anything legal off the bat. And now my viewpoint, I would definitely tell any new hunter that's getting into hunting, if there's a guaranteed legal animal, take it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people will say don't pass up on day 1 what you wouldn't pass up on day 8, because you might not have the opportunity. And that's another place too that I feel like on these hunting forums where people get hung up on, just because your animal doesn't fit the trophy of somebody else. If that animal is legal and legitly harvest, that's a personal moral thing or moral thing, and if it's legal, I don't have a problem with it. And
neither should anybody else.
Exactly. In my opinion, that's not really their place to judge. And I that's one of the unfortunate things that I feel, that us as hunters, we have enough outside pressure coming against us. It's unfortunate when it gets to be hunters against hunters, because we're already kind of separated. Look, a lot of people will see us in a bad light, and then you drive a wedge between us, as hunters. It's unfortunate, and that's one thing I do wish that that more people would understand, that animal is a legal animal. It'll be meat in the freezer, and I know a couple of Facebook pages that I'm still on, from when I lived back in the Midwest, where I'll see, this isn't the biggest buck. And it kind of frustrates me, because it's like, you know what? That buck was worth it to you. Own it.
Yeah, you killed it. You took its life. I mean, it's dead now.
Yeah, just be like, I got meat for the freezer. This is, this is sweet. We're going to be able to eat this animal this year, and, own it.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't downgrade it now. You took its life. Like that. Yep. I think that's where a lot of this comes from. That when we start taking these animals' lives on a constant basis, that somehow we start getting a little bit complacent. I think that we start forgetting about the seriousness of that fact. I remember I was having a conversation with some guys that, when I was working in the oil field, that weren't hunters. A couple of them were actually vegans, but mostly non-hunters and kind of against hunting. And they asked me, why'd you say kill it? Why do you emphasize the fact that you killed and have to use that word kill? And I'm like, well, because I think when you take away that seriousness of the action, we lose a lot of the respect for the act that we're doing, right?
Yep.
It's, when you're talking about, the buck's not as big as it is, we kind of normalize killing animals for sport and for filling our freezer and stuff now, but at the same time, you're still literally taking the life away from something,
Yep.
And it's just like if it was valuable enough to you to take its life away from something, that's a trophy. It must be a trophy if you took its life, right?
Yep.
You know, because if it wasn't a trophy, then why'd you shoot it, right?
Yeah, well, not only that, but if you spend your whole life chasing other people's standards, you're never gonna be happy with your standards, because I don't care who you are, you're not gonna hit everyone's standards.
Oh no,
Yeah, so
never make everybody happy, especially in 2020.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, social media. But well, I won't take too much more of your time, man. I always ask this question to a lot of my guests, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. So for the new hunters and the new outdoorsmen and the people that are looking to go outdoors for the first time, what kind of advice would you give those guys?
The first piece of advice I would say is don't feel that you need the best gear to go hunting. I mean, just because you don't have the best gear, still get out there, go look around, go see what you can find. And one seminar that I was at, the person said the one thing that they said to me that stuck out, I can't remember his name, I wish I could, but he said a light pack is earned, meaning what works for you isn't going to work for me. Your 50-pound pack is going to have different stuff in it than my 50-pound pack. So if it's your first time sheep hunting and your pack is at 50 pounds, you're probably missing something critical. And then the second thing I would say is, for like a first time sheep hunter, just go at a speed you can maintain. It's not that big of a deal to stop and take a break. And even if like you're climbing a steep slope, if you go 30 feet and you need to stop and take a breather, so what? You'll get there. Just enjoy the process. Don't make it miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. I know on a lot of my hunts, when the process ends, right, and we do take that animal, A, the work usually begins, and B, it's just like, oh, well, the trip's coming to an end, and all those little pieces that we seen along the way that we kind of rushed, are kind of the pieces that made the trip that we wish we spent more time doing, whether it's looking over the terrain, picking up cool-looking rocks as we're climbing up the mountain, or any of the other things we do. So any of the guys that are looking to check out, I know some of your gear from Red Mountain Gear, where do they go? Where can we send them?
So Explore Alaska has it for sale, and then our website is redmtngear.com, and we're also on Facebook and Instagram. Or else, if you have any questions, you can personally send me an email at luke@redmtngear.com. Or else, if you want to lay hands on it, Barney's Sport Chalet also carries it, so you can check it out there.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, guys, that's another episode of the Alaska Outdoor Podcast. As always, you can check us out at explorealaska.com, and hopefully we'll see you next time on the Alaska Outdoor Podcast. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.